On today's video, my dad and I are going to be making up some venison bratwurst. Hey there, outdoor YouTubers. Well, like I said earlier, in today's video, my dad and I are going to be making up some venison bratwurst. And of course, making venison bratwursts starts off with venison. We took the trim meat off of a deer that I got, cut that down into smaller pieces that would be appropriate for the size grinder that we have. And while we were doing that, we also made sure to take a lot of the venison fat off of the meat. Venison fat does not have a good flavor like beef or pork fat does. So to make any kind of sausage or burger with venison, generally speaking, you're going to be adding some kind of beef or pork fat to it. And that also applies to making venison brats. Now, if you're interested in more details on how we break down that venison trim meat, I did do an entire separate video on that, and I'll leave a link below in the description of this video if you want to check that out. Okay, for the batch that we would be making, we're going to be using about 6 pounds of venison, and we're going to be using about 6 pounds of pork butt. And the pork butt will also need to be cut down into sizes that are appropriate for the grinder that we have. Now, my dad thought that the pork butt that we had was actually a little on the lean side, so he wanted to add even a little bit more fat content to it. So we actually used some beef fat trimmings to give our venison brats a little bit more fat content. Of course, you could also add more pork fat if you wanted to, but we went ahead with this beef fat trimmings. And oftentimes, that pork butt or these beef fat trimmings can be found at your local grocery store. Yeah, now you were saying if that pork butt would have been a lot more fatty, that we could have just got by with that. But you thought this pork butt was actually a little on the lean side for a pork butt, eh?
Most of the pork products you get, that you buy nowadays, they're what they call user-friendly. That came to the meat shop where they could put it on the saw and just cut pork steaks off of it.
Okay.
Or put the roast in the case as is, or cut it in half and put 2 boneless pork butt roast in the case. Yeah. And they have a nice appearance because they're not overly fat. You can see the part that I didn't take, how lean that is.
Right, yeah.
Well, that's probably almost as lean as your venison. Like if I took that right there, that would be as lean as your venison, and you won't get enough juiciness to it. So, like I say, I just wanted to make sure I get enough fat from off of this pork to make it a bratwurst blend. So I'm going to go with at least this here into there. And
but yeah, just so people realize, though, they could just go with pork butt, but you just thought that one was just a little on the lean side, so we just wanted to add a little bit more fat content to it.
Right.
Okay. So the scale says almost 15 pounds. About 2 pounds of that is just the tub that the meat is in. And then the rest of it is about 6 pounds of pork butt, 6 pounds of venison, and about 1 pound of beef fat trimmings. Now the brat seasoning that we're going to be using today is made by Excalibur. And it's actually a Sheboygan brat seasoning. I'll leave a link below to the Excalibur Seasoning Company if you want to check any of their stuff out. The package that we have is actually good for about 25 pounds of meat, so we've got roughly half that. So we're going to split this seasoning bag in half just by pouring the contents into 2 containers and getting it about equal. Now, Sheboygan is actually a town in Wisconsin. And the people around there are really into their bratwursts.
Slightly sprinkle this across the whole thing. And then hand mix it in.
In Sheboygan, Wisconsin, if you grill out, they don't call it barbecuing, they don't call it grilling outside, they actually call it a brat fry. And the way it was explained to me, it doesn't even necessarily mean that you're cooking brats or grilling brats. That's just the term that they use anytime you are cooking outside on a grill. It's not barbecuing, it's not cooking on a grill, it's a brat fry.
The grinder will also do the final mixing for us, but this just kind of gives us a little assurance that we don't have any clumps or lumps any place in it.
And then we're going to take that mixture and we're going to run it through the grinder one time through the 10 millimeter plate.
Gotta find the thread here.
Yeah.
There. Always want to have your cutter tight. Pretty tight, because otherwise it'll get loose. The meat will compact between your plate and your cutter. You gotta take it apart and you got a real mess to clean up.
Sure.
To get it back to where it's going to accept the stuff again. Okay, we're going pretty good through this. Yeah. Pulling it through pretty good on its own.
Yeah.
We have a lot of moisture in it, which is good. Plus the meat is good and cold. And our first batch is through. And we'll put the next batch in. Okay, then this is our sausage attachment that we're going to slide our casing over, which we're using hog casing. That's the type casing used kind of universally for things like bratwurst, Polish sausage, etc., to make those links that fit into that bun. And so this is how it has a plastic collar, and then the horn itself, which we go through and set into here, and then tighten onto the grinder. It's always good to lube that with water so your casing goes on a little better.
And that 10 millimeter plate is still in the grinder.
Just to go ahead and try to get your meat right out to the end so you don't have a big air pocket that blows your casing up.
Okay, yeah.
Get a little meat coming out, so it'll be working on.
All right.
Now we'll go ahead and thread some casing on it. Find the end of the casing. Looks awful small, but it will fit onto your horn.
Now, it's always a good idea to keep the length of the casing that you put on the horn kind of a manageable length. Maybe 4 to 6 feet of casing seems to work pretty good. And then at the end of the casing, you just tie a knot to get things started.
Yeah. Ready? Sure, let her have it.
All that I'm trying to do here is keep a good steady flow of meat coming through the grinder. And my dad is just trying to make sure that there's a good, consistent amount of meat going into the casing. You don't want to have the casing get stuck on the horn. You don't want to get a big bulge of meat anywhere. So he's just kind of working it and making sure it's kind of a good, uniform amount of meat going into that casing.
I hope we have enough casing. We should. If we don't, we'll just have hamburger or bratwurst patties.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are good. All right, we ready?
All right, sure.
Then just a little twist or stretch in the end of the casing
Okay.
kind of holds that other end intact too.
All right.
Okay.
Does it look like we're getting somewhere?
Yeah, that looks good.
Sometimes it takes a little doing. It doesn't appear as though it's ever going to fit, but it does. Get over that.
You got a lot of good water on there, right? Lubing
Yeah, I did,
that corn up good.
Lube it pretty good. And the casing being wet will help slide on there good.
Yeah.
And you can get a lot of feet done
Oh yeah.
on this horn.
You ready?
Sure, let her happen.
All right. That's it, Dave.
That's not that.
Okay.
I'll just catch it in my hand.
Yeah, and then the last little bit that we cleaned out of the grinder and the last little bit that we ran out after the casing ran out, we just made up into a patty, and we got two nice big brat patties here. One little trick that really helps to clean out that grinder after you're done is to run some saltine crackers through it. The saltine crackers kind of push the meat that's left over inside of the grinder out, and that'll save you a lot of time with your cleanup. And then the next step is to take this really super long bratwurst and make it into a bunch of normal sized bratwursts. Yeah, so that's what you're doing. You're spinning one way.
Right.
You get to the next one, you spin it the other
Give
way.
it several and it'll hold up good.
Yeah.
give them a little pinch at the area you want that spin to take place.
Okay.
Some of the guys used to do it that way and that way, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Works either way.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll cut these up. They vary in size, but sometimes you like one that's bigger than the bun.
Oh, yeah.
But looking pretty much the same.
And you just kind of cut it in the middle.
Cut it, yeah. And that's good enough. As soon as it starts hitting something hot, contracts anyway.
Yep.
You know, like on your grill.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not going to blow apart. Unless you get it too hot. And as it's cooking, sometimes you want to hit it with a toothpick so you don't get it.
Sure.
So that they're blowing apart on you when they get too hot.
Mm-hmm.
There she be.
So, yeah, and then we're just going to throw them in a bucket for now. A bucket of brats. That should be like that should be a promotional thing at Lambeau Field. A bucket of brats.
Yeah, right.
Just, you know, you can get a bucket of chicken.
Door prize.
Yeah.
Bucket of brats.
Yeah, you can get a bucket of chicken. Why not get a bucket of brats? All right, a quick recap. We started off with about 6 pounds of trimmed up venison, and then we mixed that up with about 6 pounds of pork butt, and then just to add a little bit more fat content, we added 1 more pound of beef fat trimmings. Then we mixed that all up with our Sheboygan Bratwurst seasoning, ran that mixture through the grinder with the 10mm plate 1 time. Then we added the casing horn to the grinder, leaving that 10mm plate in. Then we put our hog casing onto the horn. Then we ran that once ground mixture through the grinder 1 more time to fill the casing. Then we twisted them into normal size links. And cut them apart. All right, guys. Well, there you have it. Remember to hunt, fish, laugh, repeat. This is Dave Knetter with my dad, Don Knetter, for Knetter's Practical Outdoors. Hey, thanks for watching and God bless.